Today on the CTV News at 5, the former chair of the Taber Police Commission is sentenced to jail time and house arrest on charges of luring and accessing child pornography. Plus, delays in the case of a man charged in a fatal drug dispute in Shaughnessy. And a new helipad is ready at Chinook Regional Hospital.
CTV News with Jackie Scantlebury.
Good afternoon. A Taber man has been sentenced to a combination of jail time and house arrest on charges of internet luring and accessing child pornography. 43-year-old Curtis David Parody was sentenced to 90 days in jail on a charge of internet luring. He's going to serve that time on weekends, but he's also been sentenced to an additional 12 months under house arrest and 6 months under a strict curfew on a charge of accessing child pornography. The sentences will be followed by 2 years of probation. The Crown had called for an 18-month jail term and says it will consider appealing the decision. Terry Boat reports.
43-year-old Curtis David Parody arrived at the courthouse facing the possibility of a 10-year maximum penalty on charges of internet luring and 5 years on the count of accessing child pornography. But under this sentence, he'll spend 90 days at the Lethbridge Correctional Centre to be served intermittently on weekends. He'll also spend 12 months under house arrest, followed by a 6-month curfew and then probation. The Crown, which called for at least 18 months in hard jail time, expressed disappointment.
In this case, you see that we had Homeland Security in the United States involved. We had the ICE unit in southern Alberta involved. It takes a lot of effort to find these types of offenders and bring them to justice. So in the Crown's opinion, that requires a higher level of denunciation and deterrence.
In handing down his sentence, Provincial Court Judge Derek Redmond cited psychological reports that determined the risk of reoffending was low to moderate and that Parody was a minimal risk to public safety, a risk that could be managed through an appropriate conditional sentence.
We have said from the beginning that we thought that in this particular instance, neither society, the victim, nor Mr. Parody would be in any way served by a lengthy period of incarceration. We're in a situation where Mr. Parody has accepted what he's done was wrong, and now we'll have an opportunity to make amends for it.
The teenage victim has provided a victim impact statement, saying her life and the way she reacts to people has not been the same. She says she suffers from anxiety and depression and has increased smoking and drinking. She also says she's given up modeling, but plans to go into law in order to help protect other young girls. Parody will begin serving his first weekend in jail this Friday. Terry Vogt, CTV News, Taber.
Court was told that Parody posed as a 20-year-old man to establish an online relationship with a 16-year-old girl in the United States, and he then convinced the girl to perform sexual acts on a webcam. The Crown says it will review the sentencing decision before deciding whether to launch an appeal. Meanwhile, a preliminary hearing is being rescheduled for a Mexican man accused of gunning down an associate in a drug dispute near Lethbridge. The hearing for 29-year-old Luis Ochoa Gamez was supposed to start this morning. Instead, though, his lawyer has withdrawn from the case and a new date will now have to be set. Ochoa Gamez is charged with second-degree murder in the shooting death of 24-year-old Mario Hernandez Renteria. Renteria was gunned down in the town of Shaughnessy back in October of 2010. Ochoa Gamez has hired a Calgary lawyer to represent him, and they'll set a new preliminary hearing date at his next court appearance, May 29th. One of the brothers charged after a pickup truck was rammed into a Taber Tim Hortons was back before the courts today. This security footage shows a truck crashing through the coffee shop. A stolen oil rig slammed into the back of a pickup truck, which then rammed into the restaurant. 27-year-old Jake Cron is charged with stealing the rig. He's also charged with dangerous and impaired driving. But it was his brother, 26-year-old Heinrich Cron of Sterling, who was before the courts today. He's charged with obstruction and public mischief. His next court appearance is set for June the 5th. Meanwhile, Medicine Hat police are investigating after someone crashed into a liquor store in that city this afternoon. It happened at the Crossroads liquor store in Medicine Hat. Police say a blue Dodge pickup truck jumped the curb and drove through the front wall and door. No one was hurt, but there is extensive damage to the front of the store and merchandise. Police say so far no charges have been laid. An autopsy was conducted today on a body found in Waterton Lakes National Park. Canoeists found a body floating face down in Cameron Bay Friday afternoon. Our CMP are releasing very few details, other than to say that the victim is a 23-year-old Lethbridge woman. Mounties aren't releasing her name and are asking for the public's help as investigators try to figure out what happened. Details from the autopsy have yet to be released. If you have any information, please call Pincher Creek RCMP. Well, provincial law enforcement officers were very busy over the Victoria Day long weekend. Officers issued 5,711 tickets for offenses ranging from poaching to speeding. In fact, 3,900 were for speeding alone. Stars Air ambulance staff had a quieter weekend than in the past, but they did make back-to-back calls just north of Coleman at the Gap Provincial Forestry Fire Base. A man in his 20s was hurt dirt biking on Sunday, and as soon as they got to the Calgary area, Stars was called back to the same site for another biking crash. Montana's governor will make the final decision on whether an Alberta man on death row will be executed. Ronald Smith has lost his plea for clemency before the Montana Board of Pardons and Parole. Smith was convicted of killing 2 men in Montana in 1982. He apologized to their families at his hearing earlier this month. The board said testimony both for clemency and against was compelling and heartfelt, but in the end, the 3-member panel voted unanimously to reject Smith's appeal. Smith is originally from Red Deer. To Dory Rossiter now, and those temperatures going to take a bit of a hit this week, Dory.
Yeah, we really are. And when you see the satellite map, you'll know why. Great big broad trough that extends across much of the prairies. Right now, it's for Alberta, it's isolated to the north, but it's going to collapse and fall back down on us. So we're going to get into unstable weather and cooler weather. I'll have all the details coming up in a couple of minutes.
Okay, Dory, thank you. Lethbridge-based Canadian Pacific Railway workers are planning on striking tomorrow morning. CP Rail employers issued 72-hour strike notice over the weekend. They can legally walk off the job at midnight tonight. The union, which represents almost 5,000 employees across the country, says that they've been working towards a new contract since October. They claim the company is planning to cut pensions by 40%. Lethbridge employees will be walking the picket line at the KIP rail yard 7 a.m. unless the two sides can reach a deal tonight. A Vancouver area-based Liberal MP says health care in Canada as we know it is at risk. Dr. Hetty Fry says she feels the Harper government is being irresponsible in their handling of health care. She says she's concerned that no progress has been made on a plan to deliver health care more efficiently in this country, saying a health accord that was signed in 2004 under Paul Martin, in which the government agreed to the changes, has been abandoned and set the system back years, especially when it comes to the care of seniors.
Seniors are worse off. A lot of people can't find the medication that they need. They can't afford it. They're not taking it. And so they're going to have to go into hospital, and it's very costly to keep people in hospital, and it makes them sicker. So, you know, there are a whole bunch of things that we're not doing at all, and that really concerns me.
Fry made the comments today at a town hall meeting at the Senior Citizens Organization. Well, Stars Air Ambulance is now able to land and take off from a new helipad at Chinook Regional Hospital in Lethbridge. The pad is located on the roof of the hospital's new parkade. It was approved for use last week by Transport Canada and welcomed its first flight Saturday night. The previous ground-level helipad will be used to store construction equipment used for the hospital's ongoing redevelopment projects. And one of those projects includes building a corridor linking the parkade to the hospital.
So this was the completion of the helipad marks the completion of the parkade, which will now allow us to accommodate the rest of the capital project, which we'll be moving forward with starting this year as we build a new addition on the site. The other thing that this signifies that we're done is we're extremely excited about the fact that we have a nice new facility for parking staff and the public.
Last year, Stars flew 50 missions from Lethbridge. Decision is expected early next month on how to proceed with construction of a retail and office complex at the site of the former Atrium building in downtown Lethbridge. Cleanup of the site started 3 weeks ago and has now been completed. The original project was started about 30 years ago, but was abandoned before it was finished. The new plans call for a 3-story development with retail on the ground floor and offices on the top 2 levels. In addition to the cleanup, crews have also done x-rays and testing of the concrete structure. A spokesman for Silver Ridge Construction, the general contractor, says he'll be meeting with the owner during the first week of June to finalize the budget and review contracts for the development. A head count is underway in the community of Colehurst. Census workers are going door to door in the town for the next month. They're asking 3 quick questions about gender, age, and the number of people living in each household. Town officials say it's important everyone take part because they get federal and provincial grants based on how many people are counted. The last census was done in 2010, and at that time, there were 1,953 people living there. The census is scheduled to be completed by the end of June. The Lethbridge Public School Board is presenting their draft budget tonight. Parents, students, staff, and members of the public are invited to the presentation. The Board of Trustees will break down the budget and then talk about their priorities for the upcoming school year. The meeting runs from 6:30 until 8 tonight at the Education Center on 15th Street South. Well, controlled traffic farming is becoming more and more common in southern Alberta. In this week's Farm TV, we find out why it's proving to be very efficient.
In the spring of 2009, Alberta-based agronomist Steve LaRocque and his in-laws, Sam and Mitch Curry, changed their farming operation to a controlled traffic farming system. They modified a 30-year-old Steiger tractor and Concord air seeder to run on 10-foot centers down the same tracks, or tram lines as they're called, and seed between the rows of last year's crop. They use an RTK, real-time kinematics guidance system, which uses a GPS signal, plus a second signal from a transmission tower to achieve a higher level of accuracy. We asked Steve to update us on their controlled traffic system.
Well, we've got 2 years, we've actually got 3 years of seeding and 2 years of harvest behind us. And our fuel use on our seeding has dropped 10% since we started, which is pretty incredible when you think about it. We increased fuel efficiency by just about 10% last harvest, which was great. For the crops we had, the 2011 harvest was incredible.
There are now 4 other operators trying controlled traffic farming. Several field days are planned for this summer for those interested in controlled traffic farming and inter-row seeding.
We've got a field day marked out for July 4th at my place, and there'll be another four field days throughout Alberta.
Farm TV is brought to you by DA Building Systems.
On the markets today, a lot of down arrows, except for the TSX, which closed on an up note. Here are the final numbers.